Coming up on That Was a Show. Prolific actor Matt Frewer secured his place in the pop culture zeitgeist with his lead in the cult classic Max Headroom, and went on to countless movies and TV roles, yet none bigger in terms of actual minutes of screen time than Dr. Mike Stratford, general practitioner, novelist, and TV medical expert in Providence, Rhode Island. Despite disappearing into obscurity, this show holds an important place in television history, as Dr. Doctor is the first ever recipient of the GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Comedy Series, 2 years in a row. So why didn't CBS refill their prescription? Brynn, Aaron, and Barry schedule an appointment to get the diagnosis. We grew up during peak sitcom, Seinfeld, Friends, The Fresh Prince. But those shows were diamonds in the rough. This podcast is not about those diamonds. It's about the rough. Some sitcoms were briefly popular in their time. Some were canceled almost immediately. You probably won't recognize most of these, and you'll ask, that was a show?
That was a show?
The podcast about failed or forgotten sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, starring
Brynn Byrne,
Aaron Yeger,
And Andrew Helmer as Barry.
a Radio Gizmo production.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Barry.
Hey, Barry, and all you listeners out there.
Hi, Brynn.
Hi, Aaron.
Welcome to our couch.
Yeah. Hi from across the couch.
Yeah,
That was the other name for the podcast. Hello from the other side of the couch.
that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
That's not bad.
But it doesn't quite work like in the context of you because you're across the internet waves from us.
They don't know. It could be a really big couch.
Yeah, that's true. Could be like one of those like 70s era conversation pits that just like wraps all the way around.
You know I love those.
Yeah, like that would be my dream living room. It's like one
Like-
of those sunken conversation pits.
No kidding.
You're referring,
Yeah.
of course, to Don and Megan's apartment. And
Literally,
Of course.
literally. That is my dream home, is Dawn and Megan Draper's apartment.
We've been watching a lot of Mad Men lately.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, the good old
So-
rewatch.
I got a fun little game to play. I'm enjoying that I know when these episodes are coming out. I
Yep.
like the 1st and the 15th. So today, as you are listening to this at home, it is April 1st, 2023. Why don't we play a little game of How Wrong Were We?
I like this,
So,
okay.
The Oscars are on March the 12th, next Sunday.
Okay.
I'm gonna go through just 4 categories.
All right.
And we're gonna all just say what we think's gonna win, and then everybody listening at home on the first can laugh because they'll be wrong.
I mean, I don't even. I'll
I'll do the nominations.
All right.
Okay,
I'm just
okay.
like not invested in the Oscars.
That's
these
all
days.
right. That's
Yeah.
all right. Everybody who knows me knows I'm a
I
big
know
Oscar
you are.
guy.
You are, but yeah.
All right. So we're gonna go with first we'll start with actress in a leading role.
Okay.
The nominees are Kate Blanchett for Tar, Anna de Armas for Blonde, Andrea Riseborough for To Leslie, Michelle Williams for The Fabelmans, and Michelle Yeoh for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Who's going to win?
I think it's gonna be Michelle Yeoh.
Aaron?
I'm going with the same answer.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking that even before you said it, Michelle Yeoh.
I would very much like that. I think it'll probably be Blanchett.
Okay.
Let's go with actor in a leading role. We've got Colin Farrell in The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser in The Whale,
Mhm.
Austin Butler in Elvis, Paul Mescal for After Sun, and Bill Nighy for Living.
Oh my god, I haven't seen most of these. I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm gonna
I
go
mean,
with. I'm gonna
Colin
go with
Farrell was great, but
I'm gonna go with
probably Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, because that's the role that's been getting all the buzz. I don't know.
I
What do
don't
you
think
think,
it'll
Barry?
win. I don't
No?
think it'll
Okay,
win.
okay.
I think it's going to go to Austin Butler personally.
Ugh. Okay.
So for directing, we've got Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Schneihart for Everything Everywhere All at Once. They are colloquially known as the Daniels.
Yeah.
Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans, Todd Field for Tar, and Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness.
I'm going to hedge on this one, and I'm going to say it's going to be either Spielberg or the Daniels. And I refuse to choose which one, but my vote is one of those two.
Fair.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Daniels. I'm going to go with what I want to win. Yeah.
I actually think Spielberg's going to get this one.
Okay. Not that he's never won before, but But they like to give it.
Not as often as you think, though.
Yeah. Okay.
For Best Picture, we've got All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking.
First of all, can I just jump in real quick and say it's disgusting that Sarah Polley was not nominated for directing? Just putting that out there.
Agreed.
Yeah. This is why I don't like the Oscars, is because people get robbed all the time, and then there's a lot of dumb things that get nominated, and it's always a... Okay, end of rant.
Very, very fair point.
Yeah.
I'll say this though, as far as direction goes this year, it's a pretty good list. There's nobody on there that I find is a glaring shouldn't be there.
Best Picture, I don't even care. I really would love, there's a couple of films on there that I actually loved. I did love The Fabelmans. I did love Everything Everywhere All at Once. I would be thrilled if either of those two won. I don't really know where their heads are at. I don't know what the conversation is. I don't know what is rumored to win. I don't know. I'm going to say The Fabelmans.
At the risk of sounding like we are of one hive mind here, I feel the same way, and this is kind of what led to me hedging on the previous one.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with either of those two films winning, and I think those two films are probably the most likely to win. So I don't know which one.
But maybe you're more invested, Barry, so maybe you have a different answer. I don't know.
I don't know for sure which one I would prefer to win. I don't want to go too far into the weeds on reviewing these films in the context of our sitcom podcast.
I didn't want to get into that either. I just want to play, this is what we think is going to happen, and then 2 weeks from now, or almost a month from now, we'll know.
I think there's a good chance. Okay, here's what I'll say. I think there's a real chance that Everything Everywhere All at Once gets Best Picture.
It could sweep.
And Steven Spielberg gets Best Director.
That's kind of where I'm leaning to.
And I would not hate for that to be the outcome because, and I wrote a whole paper in film school about this, I don't believe in the always assuming the auteur framework of filmmaking. And I think with a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once, there are many factors that led to it being a great film. Acting being maybe the biggest. Cinematography maybe being the second biggest.
The fucking production design on that.
The production design.
And screenplay.
The screenplay.
It's a very original screenplay.
Yeah, the screenplay. But all
the key things are there that make it
there's
a fabulous, incredible film.
It's very well directed too. But you can't say that it's because of just the directors that is a great film. There are
It's all the pieces.
It's all the pieces. There's so many factors that make it great. Whereas The Fabelmans is clearly Spielberg's story autobiographically about himself. Yes, he collaborated with many other people to work on it. It wouldn't have been a great film without the efforts of all those other people. But it is more of a auteur by a particular author film, just by the very nature of that.
Yeah.
Story and style.
I always like the movies that give me a genuine emotional reaction are usually the ones that end up like they either get it or they're robbed and then I get mad. And this year was those two films that gave me and Women Talking, that gave me genuine emotional reactions.
Overall, it was a pretty strong year.
It was,
for films.
I would say. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a good crop. It's a good
What a
crop.
crop.
What a crop.
Yeah. I'll leave mine and just say, like, yeah, I also think Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to win. And I would be very happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that film just like sweeps everything, I'd be happy with that too. That's
It's
fine.
a real that one's a real Cinderella story, you know.
It is.
Yep.
It's a small picture. It's a very ballsy screenplay, and then Michelle Yeoh, you know.
I've listened to a lot of interviews of like the cast and different elements of making the film, and it really is such an incredible effort and such an incredible achievement for everybody.
Mhm.
And just like the genuine like pride that the cast has in being a part of it, and the just like the production of it, the ambition of it, the just the fact that they took like that IRS, it was like an actual like IRS building, like an old like
Really?
that wasn't being used anymore, and they shot most of
That's
the
funny.
movie there, and that's kind of what saved the production.
Mhm.
Was getting access to that building. So whoever made that happen deserves huge props. And when it's something as little as that, like, or not little, but I mean, when you really think about the producing, then it's like a huge achievement. Because I think a lot of us get buried in the whole creative elements of it. But when you hear that behind the scenes, there was like a few really important moves that were made by savvy producers and savvy people, then that adds another layer to the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if we want to hard pivot over to situation comedies,
I was just gonna say, speaking of things that don't have a lot of those elements in place, let's
you know what?
am I referring to our podcast, or am I referring to the sitcom that we watched? I would leave that up to the audience.
Well, before we get into this episode's sitcom, I just want to recap where we're at so far in season 3, because, maybe people want to start developing predictions for the next Twuzzies. So, at this point, we've done the George Carlin show, we've done Party Girl, and we've done the Single Guy.
Yep.
So that's where we're at. And I don't know that any of those 3 shows are going to win any huge awards.
Yeah. I mean, oh, God. Where do we even start on this?
So here's the next entry in our
canon,
our
guess.
canon. Okay. We are talking about a show called Dr. Doctor. Who wants to hear about this show?
So much. Please tell me all about it.
Get into it.
All right. Dr. Doctor ran from 1989 to 1991 on CBS. It's the story of Dr. Mike Stratford, a partner in a medical practice in Providence, Rhode Island. Mike is played by Matt Frewer. In addition to being a family doctor, he's also a TV medical expert and, for some reason, also a fiction novelist. The main thing you need to know about Dr. Mike is that he's constantly cracking jokes and frenetically bouncing off the walls with zany physical antics. This is presumably intended to be funny. Joining him are a collection of quote-unquote straight man doctors and associates in the practice who just pretty much act like normal people suffering through his madcap behavior while trying to run a clinic. There's his best friend and fellow Dr. Abraham Abe Butterfield, who is more conservative and business-focused. There's Dr. Grant Linowitz, a vain, egocentric heart surgeon. Yes, for some reason, this small family medicine practice has a heart surgeon. And there's Dr. Deidre Bennett, who is the most hard-edged and strict out of the bunch. Basically a late 80s boss woman stereotype, minus the Wall Street shoulder pads. And then there are some other supporting characters. Non-traditionally, I'm going to jump right to why I chose this show. This was a very random discovery whilst researching some other prospects. After reviewing The Single Guy, I thought it would be interesting to do another show that lasted a few seasons, but that somehow we've never ever heard of at all. Also, perhaps most interestingly, this is the first show to ever win a GLAAD Media Award for excellence in comedy. For those who don't know, GLAAD is the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, and their awards are given for outstanding, and I quote, for outstanding representations of the LGBT community and the issues that affect their lives. And for the first 2 years that GLAAD Awards have ever existed, 1990 and 1991, this is the comedy that won. So basically, I thought this show might be a hidden gem. Let's find out.
Yeah. Barry, had you ever heard of this show before?
No, which is weird because I really like Matt Frewer, and I was really surprised to hear that he had a multi-season show I'd never heard of.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the most minutes of screen time he has for anything he ever worked on, and this show lasted 40 episodes. I'm amazed that I never heard of it.
I know, it's weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, I mean, Max Headroom would have been like half this episodes, right?
Yeah, I think like 13 or something, plus a movie. But yeah, like quite remarkable that this completely like flew under the radar or disappeared for how long it lasted. And after watching it, remarkable that it lasted as long as it did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we chose it because, like, you were kind of bouncing, like, some options off of me, Aaron, and I was like, we haven't done, like, a medical one in a while. Why don't we just, like, do that one?
Yeah, workplace comedy,
Yeah.
medical environment. See, you know, we read about it. The award thing seemed interesting.
It was very, very promising.
Yeah.
And like similar to Party Girl, it felt like I couldn't find anything about it online either. It seemed like the internet had also been scrubbed, of info about this.
I was doing the key art for Party Girl like last week, and there's like nothing.
Yeah,
it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. This one, although it ran for several episodes, it might as well not have existed either. Like, it's very odd.
Yeah.
If you search up the term Doctor on IMDb, this doesn't even come up in the results. You have to
really play with it to get it to come up.
I had to, backdoor into it through one of the actors just to find it.
Yeah, I went through Frewer.
Yeah.
I had to go through Frewer. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't...
Let's talk about
why don't I set up episode 1?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And so yeah, here we go. Here's episode 1. Season 1, episode 1, presumably the pilot. We are introduced to all the doctors in this medical practice. There's friction between Dr. Stratford and his partners over how they run the business. He's also trying to manage the pressure of an overcrowded waiting room, an unhappy girlfriend whom he's ignoring, because he also has a book coming out, and he makes a TV appearance to launch the book, which goes poorly. Hugh Persons is the host of Wake Up Providence, and he's a recurring character played by Brian George. Oh, and Mike is also trying to locate a lost elderly patient. By trying to locate, I mean making little to no effort whatsoever, apart from sort of asking around a bit, but eventually runs into the guy at a local bar and then swiftly loses him again. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, shouldn't he be more concerned about that patient? Like, he lost the patient.
I don't know. I mean, is it whose responsibility is it if somebody walks out of a doctor's office? I don't think it's necessarily the doctor's, especially if they were there with family. But there's also the support staff.
I also I don't know. I found it kind of gross that they kept having this like meeting of the partners while there was like a room full of patients. It was all like nobody was attending to these patients.
That's a very good point.
I found it very arrogant and upsetting. And it's like, if this is a peek inside of how doctors actually are, I don't want to see it, because I don't want to see that the patients are actually, No,
but you're right. Because at the one hand, the waiting room is packed with people who are like almost ready to revolt over how long they've been waiting. And this is the time that these doctors choose to have casual, meandering discussions about like
the business
side of the practice. It's like, maybe put a pin in that.
Yeah.
and
Go
deal
help
with
some patients.
deal with the task at hand.
And then get back to it. Like,
I
pick it
think-
up.
Circle back, as they say.
I do think that was very much intentional. I mean, I do think that, I don't know to what end, but I do think they were trying to show a bit of the business side of this clinic, and also that, yeah, these patients are getting ignored, because it's brought up several times, like, was it Kirkland? Matt Kirkland? Is that his name? Kirkland brings it up several times. Like, why are we talking about this when we have patients outside?
Yeah.
Like, it is once or twice addressed, and I'm not sure why. But they definitely are seeming to bring up that the point the pilot seems to be making is that they are spending more time running a business than they are as doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right that I think you might be right that that's the point. Like, that's what they're trying to do, is say these people are too distracted by the business side, and the main doctor in particular is too distracted by his like side project of being a fiction novelist. We don't really learn what the book is about, but we learn just enough to know it's definitely nothing to do with medicine. It's some sort of like,
I think it was science fiction,
some sci-fi novel. But it's almost like, and we've encountered a similar thing recently. Oh, you know what? It was on the George Carlin show where we realized it's kind of that issue of like, is it too silly or not silly enough? Like, if the point is that they are neglecting their patients for all these other things, they almost needed to push that further to a cartoonish level where it's obvious that that's is
the intention.
Because this just feels like this show is not endearing us to them, especially to the main guy, to Mike.
I found the pilot very off-putting in its structure. I found, like, especially when we get to the end, I'm like, it really ends with a real, like, that's it. That's the show. And, like, nobody really comes to anything. Like, Kirkland does have a thing about how he wants to be treating more patients, and he wants to really, he's in it for the medicine. And, like,
Stratford,
that's
right?
Stratford, Kirkland, Stratford.
Doesn't matter.
Trying to go to Costco,
Mike Stratford.
Yeah.
But then the scene just ends.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's also interesting is that the show takes a little too much time getting its shit together. I mean, I did immediately want to watch episode 2, not because, like, I was enjoying it, because I was just like, I still don't know what the premise is.
Right. You just really wanted to,
I know that he is a medical consultant because he's offered the job in the pilot, but we never see that, like a TV medical consultant. We never see that in the 2 episodes we watched. So I don't know how integral to the show that was. We know he's a novelist, even though we're not quite sure what they set up so many facets of this guy's life, but they don't really, like, again, and this is a problem with all the shows we cover. We only watched 2 episodes out of 40 episodes. Maybe all of this is in other episodes.
Maybe.
I don't know, and I'm not going to find out.
But, if it were a good enough show, we'd be compelled to probably watch more. You know what I mean? Like, we'd be compelled. And I just found everybody in it so unlikable that I just was like, I can't, like, I have, like, nothing to say about any of this. Like, I just don't like any of them. I'm not rooting for any of them.
I liked it a little bit more than you guys. I didn't love it.
Well, because you were already a fan of Frewer, I guess. So there's probably something about it that, I don't know.
Kind of. I liked elements of taking a chance that they were doing. I did like that they were exploring the business side of a clinic. I thought that was interesting. I did like some of I did like the friendship between the 2 main doctors. I found Frewer was allowed to do too much. He wasn't reined in enough, because there are elements where I'm just like, oh, guys, did we not have another take of this?
Almost so.
Like, everybody was
everything was smarmy, though. Like, I found his silly humor and his little quips to be too smarmy.
Yeah.
and like mean-spirited. I didn't understand.
I think he was supposed to be a very mean-spirited character.
But why did everybody like him? Why did everyone chuckle at everything he had to say?
None of his coworkers except for his friend do like him.
But it's not the coworkers. It's not that. It's everyone else who interacts with him and gives him opportunities. And his like publicist lady that was there, who seemed to have a crush on him or something.
He had women
like throwing themselves at him.
Yeah. Two of them were people that the pilot confirms that he had dated.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was a real
and they
like
were all attractive, appeling, successul women.
It was a real like
and I did not understand it whatsoever because he was a dick and a dweeb. And like he would make fun of women's laughs. Like he would always do this thing where he was like making fun of it. It's like one of the things that makes my blood boil. It's that thing that like some men do to basically, it's like a misogynist kind of thing where they make fun of a woman's laugh, where the implication is that they're a ditz. And he did that multiple times. And I wanted to reach into the television and punch the character because I was just like, how do people like you? You're so rude. Well, you're so condescending.
There's a bit of
like,
with
the, getting heated.
With the women in the practice, there's a bit of an Archie Comics sort of vibe.
Yeah,
where it's like, are we just gonna have to keep seeing like all of these women throwing themselves at him for mysterious reasons, and he doesn't really seem interested in any of them? He just likes the attention.
All the other male doctors are more appealing in different ways. Like they're all way more attractive.
Vastly.
Especially like Abe, even though he's like weirdly conservative or whatever, he's still way more of a appealing character. But everyone's like here, like throwing their panties at frickin' Mike Stratford with his like, I can't. He can't even comb his hair. Like he can't even comb his hair before going on television.
That was definitely like a real like, you got to sitcom up this hair.
Yeah, no, that was a choice. That was a choice,
but it was a strange choice. It was a very odd choice. And I don't know. I don't understand this show. I don't understand the intentions. I'll
say this about him making fun of that character's laugh.
Yeah.
I was initially very, very off-put by that.
Yeah.
Because the show is so bad at telegraphing what the joke there is.
Yeah.
That's what the joke seems to be. But when you meet that character, you know she doesn't have, she is in no way a ditz. She doesn't have a ditzy voice. She doesn't have it. So he is, I don't get why, but he's basically insisting that she's this thing. And it's like, we're supposed to pick up that she's basically the complete opposite of that. And then later when he does it again, it's because somebody says the word happy hour. I don't know if this laugh is something that Matt Frewer thinks is funny. I don't get why it's there.
It just reminds me of something that an unnecessarily smarmy guy who's very it's something that just I've seen in life where there's an overeducated man who's very into himself and thinks that he's superior to everyone. It's the kind of thing that he would throw out there in the world and just be like, oh, I'm just so much better than all of you. But really, he's an antisocial asshole who doesn't know how to relate to 95% of human beings.
Right.
So what I find interesting with that point is but this is House. This guy is fucking House.
Right.
And people love House, and he is way worse.
Yes, but like, I don't know. There's something about House that was more like I don't even know.
Well, that's what I wanted to get at, which is that all of these criticisms are things that sort of do work in other shows in a different context. And there's something about him.
First of all, I don't know. It's just this character. I hate him.
His physical.
I'm not afraid to say it.
His physical energy is like Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
Like it's so.
But he's not endearing.
But not endearing.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect of it is that I guess the point is that he's supposed to be constantly making jokes and constantly doing these antics, and the other characters have to kind of put up with him or try to rein him in. Like that's part of the premise of the show. But the net result is that to us, the audience, it's insufferable. It is too much. And
It
then
is.
and then at the same time, like, okay, couple things that I need to comment on that have come up.
Go
Okay.
for it.
First thing, when
All I'm doing is ranting.
I know
So you go ahead.
you hate the show. Look, I also hate it. I want to dissect some of these things.
It's just I hate that character
I know,
too much.
but I want
That's it.
to dissect some of these
Okay, go for it.
details. So, Barry, you talked about, like, was this the best take you had? Why didn't you get another take of this thing? One thing I noticed, was that there were some mistakes in the camera work in a way that, like, there was a shaky shot. There were a couple shots in the pilot where I could see, like, barrel distortion on the lens in the corner because they went too wide.
Yeah, but we don't know what version of this we're seeing.
I know we don't.
We don't know if
But
like I can't.
But sure, if it was just one
It was
of
a
these
low
details,
quality version
but
we
over
watched,
the course of the whole pilot, just paying attention to the audio quality, paying attention to the performances, it felt kind of a little bit rushed and slapped together like the pilot. It just didn't quite have that level of polish. I'll say that, like, season 2, episode 6, which we'll talk about more soon, was a little bit more polished in terms of those, like, technical details. So some of those were obviously just pilot issues, but that was sort of a thing across the board in that first episode. But I hoped that, like, by season 2, episode 6, his behavior would have settled into something that works a little better, and it doesn't. Again, we'll talk about that more in detail after.
I think it's better. I think he's better.
The other thing is, like, okay, his friendship with Abe, okay, they're making such a meal out of the fact that it's like, okay, one of them's white and one of them's black, and they're friends and they're coworkers, and there's a lot of, like, jokes around that. Some of those jokes
really
are
inappropriate,
pretty, like, inappropriate and cringy. But, it got me thinking, like, what's a workplace comedy that I like where there's a character that says, quite frankly, equally inappropriate comments from time to time, and that would be Michael Scott in The Office.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why Michael Scott in The Office works is because by design, he's not someone presented as, this is the person to be emulated. This is the sole protagonist of the show. This is the person through whose eyes you should be experiencing this world, right? There are jokes on The Office that don't hold up, jokes that probably shouldn't have been done in the first place. But on balance, as a series, it holds up. And that's one of the reasons why, is because, like, he's presented as a character where you're supposed to think everything that comes out of his mouth, like, if it's not about selling paper, he doesn't have a fucking clue. Like, everything that comes out of his mouth is nonsense, and you're supposed to know that.
I have a sadder counterpoint to that.
I just want to say, but this guy's a doctor.
Yeah.
First of all. And second of all, and he is clearly the protagonist of this show.
Yeah.
It's not an ensemble cast. All the other
he
characters.
is both the doctor and the doctor.
Yeah. Yes, he's both doctors in the title. Given that the show's called Doctor, it would have been great if it was a buddy comedy that was equally about two different doctors sharing a practice.
Yeah.
It's not, though. So let's be
Could
very
have been.
Yeah.
Could have been.
Could have been. Let's be very clear.
We don't know.
It's not. It is
It could have
absolutely
been
not.
Frankenstein together into being this weird thing focusing on him.
But he's the character dominating the show, and everyone else is just orbiting around his planet. So there's that problem. Like, imagine if on The Office, some of those things that Michael Scott says, imagine if Jim said those things. It would have killed the show instantly.
Barry, let's get to Barry's counterpoint. You're going down to the weeds there.
I think that one of the sad things, especially about the racial component to those jokes and about their back and forth, is 1989. And I think we'll end up talking about this a bit as we get in a episode, the second episode we covered. But 1989, this somehow passed. This was like, I don't think at any point in a writer's room those jokes were flagged as offensive. I think this reminds me a lot of, love him, absolutely love a guy. This reminds me a lot of the kind of shit that you would see in, like, a Robin Williams performance of around that time.
Right.
You would see those similar jokes, right? Yeah. And also, as a counterpoint, if The Office got canceled in the first season and we were covering it, outside of Jim, we would have trashed it because
Yeah.
it is hard to fucking watch. And
Yeah.
yes, Jim might seem like the protagonist to us now. He's not. That
and
show
actually, upon
is
rewatches,
the show is
upon
the Steve
rewatches,
Carell show.
Jim comes across way more toxic and like
just
Yeah, sure.
indifferent.
But in the
There-
first
there's so many
season
things.
specifically,
I mean, but there's so many things in that show that upon rewatching, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, he was not the perfect husband. He was a controlling asshole.
Of course, but the
Yeah.
point I was making is, why is it that
Yeah.
we watch and enjoy The Office and we couldn't enjoy this?
I fucking
know.
hated the pilot to The Office.
Yeah.
And I remember refusing to watch again because I found even like in 2001, I think,
I think,
2002,
yeah.
something like that. The pilot is really bad and offensive, and
Yeah.
like it was one of those things where I didn't enjoy, and I liked Steve
yeah.
Carell going into it, so it wasn't.
I think over
yeah.
time, they probably had more people in the mix in that
Yeah.
writer's room. And a lot of the cast had input to their characters and how
Yeah.
their characters were written. So it's not just a few white guys writing the scripts. Like
Yeah.
over time, they had a lot
Yeah.
of people contributing. Whereas I feel like, we're saying, oh, these jokes passed in 1989, probably because it was a bunch of white guys in the writer's room.
Well, I think
Yeah,
like-
yeah,
we can-
exactly
we
that.
can
Yeah,
solidly
You know?
conclude that for 1989, this show is pretty par for the course when it comes to
like
that stuff.
Exactly. All right, well, what's
Okay.
next?
Well,
What's next?
what's
You
n-
lead the way, Aaron.
Sure.
Then I.
The Office season 1 does have Diversity Day, which is one of the most offensive pieces of television probably ever.
It is to this day. Yeah.
Well, these are all very good points. And,
Yeah.
and to be honest, like when The Office first came out, and I think I saw a few episodes in season 1, and I
Yeah.
bailed on it. And it wasn't until many, many years later,
Yeah.
after it went off the air, that friends of mine like pushed me very hard
To get back
to
into
to
it.
give The
yeah.
Office a chance. And I never liked season 1 of The Office, but I guess I was using
No one does.
I
Parks
was-
and Rec too.
sure.
Same. Yeah.
Yes,
It
Parks and
always
Rec
takes
too.
the second season
But
for it to
I guess
heat up and get good.
I wasn't trying to do a pilot to pilot season 1 to season 1 comparison as much as just The Office, once it finds its footing and once it works as a show,
Mhm.
using that as a model for a workplace comedy to understand how do some characters work and some characters don't, and what are these
Mhm.
choices that get made, and just as a system, as a framework for analysis. And then we can look at this show, and some of these things are very glaring in terms of why they don't work.
I think that I was thinking of this more and more as we were watching it. It's just like, or as I've been watching a lot of these shows, is how much that sometimes I am like, I do have to remind myself I don't have a full picture of this show, especially when we talk about
you're right,
three
Barry.
season shows,
And,
right?
and I think that's why we try to jump, like when we have a show
Yeah.
that lasts longer, we try
Yeah.
to always pick a later episode.
Always
Because
good idea.
sometimes you do get that
Yeah.
sense of, okay, this is how the show grew. Like, this is
Yeah.
kind of where it went. But yeah, I mean, for this show, it probably was too small a sampling.
Yeah, I mean, let's put it
know.
this way: how much better could it have gotten?
I
It
don't
was
know.
gone. It was
I
gone
don't
a
know.
year late.
If
It was gone a
nobody
year later.
remembers it, and it
Yeah.
hasn't been written
Yeah.
about much, it
No.
probably just never was that good a show, and it probably had some people who had some pull at the network to keep it on for as long as it was on.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't know.
just before we move on to the next episode, Barry, you mentioned the comparison to Robin Williams for unrelated reasons, but when I was watching this, I thought of that kind of what's the movie Patch
Adams.
Adams sort
Yeah.
of thing with the doctor who's like always joking and doing all these antics, and that's one of those things where I realized, like, is this too silly or is it not silly enough? Is it that
Mhm.
But
this
also,
is
that had heart.
that had
the whole thing behind Patch Adams
Right.
is that a character had a heart.
right?
Whereas
So-
this guy is like kind of a dickhead,
The-
mean-spirited
the thing
guy.
about Patch Adams is if
Mhm.
you're the doctor who's acting like a clown because it's a tool to elevate,
heal people through
to heal people through humor,
medicine and humor.
and
yeah.
and to do it to like make kids, especially probably, but to make patients feel more comfortable to add levity to a dark situation. If that's the point, then I see there's something to that. This is not the way his antics are used in this show.
Not at all. Nope.
And if that was ever the intention that needed to be in the pilot, and so that's not a thing. And then just in terms of like one other note I wrote down as far as like trying to endear us to them, there is this like breakup scene, this sort of like weirdly like somewhat emotional breakup scene with this neglected girlfriend. And I'm just watching this and I'm just like, I don't care about these people. You're not gonna like. What are you trying to force on me here? Is the tone shift?
Well, they're
was
just
ridiculous.
trying to it's a pilot. They're trying to get you to care. It didn't work.
It's like
that's why. That's why. But
yeah.
that's why that's there because they want you to care.
Yeah, the emotional manipulation they were trying for did not succeed.
Yes.
So
now, last but not least, what we have to say before we move on to the other episode, Babu.
Yeah, he's
how did they find Babu?
Yeah.
So obviously this was made shortly before those episodes of Seinfeld with Babu Bhatt, the restaurant owner whose business Jerry destroys. And I haven't gotten to see him in a lot of things, and
Man,
actually,
he's
Brian
been
George
on everything.
Brian George has worked a lot.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, we'll get into it later, but we know him most from that role, but he's like a king among men in the industry.
But this was like to see him in this silly role that's like pre-Seinfeld.
He was good in it though.
It was good.
I found him funny.
He was good. I didn't find him too silly. I liked his scene a lot.
I thought
actually,
it was a measured performance.
No, I mean silly in a good way. As the point of it was a typical, smaller city cable affiliate sort of morning talk show.
Yeah.
Does a great job as the host of that show and portraying that kind of thing. And then the doctor goes on and he hasn't read the book and they start bickering, but then you realize that they're live on the air. That was the best scene in the pilot.
Yep. Yeah, it might have been interesting to see. It did make me curious how some of the TV stuff might have gone.
Yeah. So if I were willing to watch another episode of this show, it would have to be an episode that he's in that weighs heavily on that part of the world.
Yeah.
That's the only way I would give another few minutes of my time to this. So,
but you've got the show this is the thing. The show has way too many fucking things going on, right? Because we've got Frewer running a practice with his friends. Then we got Frewer as a medical consultant on TV. Now, presumably this was something they would pull out whenever they wanted to.
Yeah.
But it was going to be an element to the show. Then we have a main character who's credited in the pilot, but does not appear in the pilot. And that's his brother, who we'll talk about a lot.
In this next episode.
We have his relationship with his brother, who lives downstairs from him. And this is these are 3 settings.
Yeah, it's too much. It's way too much.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Speaking of...
His character alone does too much. It's really annoying. It's how does he,
His relationship with his brother would later end up being probably the best part about his character.
Yes, I agree.
And they
with
didn't
that.
think that we needed to see that in the pilot?
Yeah. Apparently not.
Yeah, they gave us too much overall in the pilot, but not enough of the couple things we wanted to learn. And speaking of the scope of things, that medical practice set is so oddly large in scope. It's multiple levels with this big kind of 2-story lobby thing and stairs. And it's just this big sweeping. It's really hard to understand because the
fakest books you've ever seen on a shelf.
It's really big, but really fake. And then the scenes between the partners talking about business feel like this is kind of a scrappy ragtag group of doctors who are pretty new to the game of running a medical practice. So you would picture a small neighborhood walk-in clinic, but then this set is almost like a community hospital. It's huge.
Yeah.
And there's a cardiologist.
Yeah.
A lot going on. Lot going on.
Okay. Do we want to get into the next episode?
Let's move on.
Season 2, episode 6. Here's the plot. Grant, the cardiologist, needs help writing a speech for some sort of conference. Sidebar, person who is nervous about public speaking having to give a big speech at a conference is definitely a huge trope from the time. Anyway.
No, in general.
Yes. Anyway.
Happens on The Office.
Anything where there's a line where someone says, you gotta just picture them all naked.
Yeah. Yep.
That's been done thousands of times. I've seen that same scene on television thousands and thousands of times.
But then in Bob's Burgers, they say that to Tina, and Tina says, I already do picture everybody naked. And then Gene goes, I don't know, maybe picture everybody like with just a sock covering stuff.
See, that's good. That's a good plan.
That's a good subverting of that trope. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, Mike suggests that his brother Richard would be able to help write and rehearse the speech. Mike's brother Richard is gay. Grant is homophobic. He initially seems to grow past this, and the two very quickly become good friends, bonding over things like fancy wine. They plan a weekend getaway to see some sort of show. Mike and the other partners at the practice start to wonder if Grant might actually also be gay, and perhaps there's a romantic relationship developing between the two. When Grant catches wind of these rumors, the panic sets in.
Yeah.
So he breaks off the plans with Richard, who, upon finding out why, is understandably offended and calls out Grant's assumptions and homophobia. In the end, Grant apologizes and asks if they can still be friends. Meanwhile, there's a medical equipment salesman who keeps waltzing into the practice, pushing expensive equipment that they may or may not need. All the doctors are confident they can resist his slick sales tactics, but one by one, they fall prey and make some sort of big purchase. So there you go.
That's it. That's the whole
That was
lot.
that was it.
That's
was it. All right then.
All right. Well, at least
See you next week.
Unlike the pilot, at least it's very decisively, two specific plot lines going on. You got your A story, you got your B story. Let's discuss.
Yeah.
So I liked a lot of this episode. I liked when I knew the premise of it, you said like, oh, it was about a character confronting their homophobia. And when I was watching the pilot, I was just like, oh my God, I can't watch Stratford be homophobic for 30 minutes because this is going to be really rough because the character is already borderline offensive.
Yeah.
So color me surprised
that he wasn't the one.
When he wasn't the one. And actually, like, I didn't expect the level of acceptance that character had.
Yeah.
Like when I heard the premise and be like, oh, that won an award. Clearly, the award was definitely one of those, like, yeah, they did get it for this episode, and I get it. But also, they have a regular cast member who is gay and who is regularly accepted by the cast. And sadly, for fucking 1989, that was almost
was
like as good as it got. And that's like,
it
made me sad.
Yeah.
It made me sad.
Yeah, it's for 1989. It's a well done. I guess you could say it's a well done episode for what it's trying to do, and it is sad that that's what passed muster, so to speak.
I think the takeaway is that it's like maybe the reason it got the award is because the gay character comes across the best and is the most three-dimensional character, and it's the straight people that are being idiots, and that's the whole point, and that's why
he comes across well.
Yeah. And basically,
he's great, and to see that he was a regular, I was like, oh wow,
yeah. Like the fact that the way in which he calls out Grant is so perfect, and so it was like a bit of a gut punch because it was like he's like, I just, I always saw you as a friend, and you always saw me as a slur.
Yeah, insert slur,
and it was like. It was a very well, like the way he says it is like, he's like, why, the implication is like, we could have just been friends no matter what. And you're just making it about this.
Yes, you made these stupid assumptions.
You assumed I wanted to like sleep with you, and that was never on the table. It was literally just, I wanted to be your friend because I thought we got along well, and this is your problem. This is not a me problem.
Shared interests.
Yeah.
I thought we were friends. You thought we were friends. Suddenly you became...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because he was
Crazy.
worried how it made him look, which was just like, again, a gut punch, because he's just like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. But it's, I say that from 2023, right?
Yeah, and like Matt Frewer, like, he's very, like, his character, like, that is the one time I was like on the character side, because he was like he's basically like, why is this even a thing? Like,
yeah.
It's like and he shames Grant for his treatment of him. He's like, our own dad won't even talk to him.
Yeah.
So you think you have it hard, you don't know what he's been through, and I was like, oh, that is like, I just thought it was really well written. Like those aspects of it were really well written.
That aspect of the show was surprisingly well done.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense why it won the award. It's too bad that all kind of had to share the stage with the other plot line, which really just felt like filler.
Yeah.
That's you know what, though? I've noticed over the years that is pretty common in these quote unquote important episodes where
they do need to have stakes.
They do need to have a B plot.
Yeah.
But also they almost always make them very, very low stakes and very like small. Because like one or two scenes we even saw in that, right?
But that B plot, it's like, on the one hand, in terms of supporting and defending his brother, Dr. Mike actually, saves a small cat in that episode where we're kind of like, okay.
Just a kitten,
I'm a kitten. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to now spend a little bit more screen time with you. But then his antics in the B story go right back to the like peak, even more annoying than he is in the pilot, where just the way he's doing these jokes around like the medical gadgets and stuff, and I'm just like, stop, just cut to the next scene, please stop. Please stop now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just so proud of the writers for having a rectal probe introduced in this episode and just somehow, like, I'm like, man, you guys need to give yourself a pat on the back for not even trying to bring that into the rest of it. Because, like, I was like real worried when that rectal probe made an appearance, and I was just like, oh no, what are you guys gonna do?
Yeah.
And they were like, nope, it's just a medical.
We're not going there.
And I was like,
it was pitched though. It was pitched in the room.
Yeah, it was pitched. It was pitched.
I don't even want to think about what was pitched.
Maybe the reason why that subplot is so light is because like
someone was like,
they cut everything out.
Yeah, they probably did.
Right. Well, there's one other thing that we didn't mention in what happens in that episode, which is the cold open, so to speak, which is an encounter with a patient who may be Elvis.
That.
He was like an impersonator, I guess.
Well, it wasn't clear whether he was intended to be an Elvis impersonator.
Yeah, but it was 89. Right, Elvis is dead.
Right, but there were all these conspiracy theorists who believed that Elvis was actually still alive and in hiding. Yeah. And there were aspects of it where it seemed like the joke was, this actually is Elvis, but he's like hiding out in Providence, Rhode Island under the radar. And
I think you're the only one who read that scene that way.
Yeah. Because he wouldn't have worn his whole regalia if he were hiding out.
I think you're the only one who read that scene as it's really Elvis.
I don't know.
I think he was just making a joke.
Yeah, because Stratford's fucking with him the whole time.
I know, but okay. I think they were playing off some degree of ambiguity there. I'm not suggesting any of us rewatch it to research this, but that was just my take. Doesn't matter. Anyway.
Hey, listeners, was it Elvis? You tell us.
Yeah. But
boy.
The bigger point is that for a show about a medical practice run by a group of doctors who have patients coming and going a lot, out of 2 episodes, we saw very little interaction with patients. I mean, almost none. So,
I think we're about to just lob like a complaint about just sitcoms in general, where
Yeah.
we see very little work being done.
Just like in Party Girl, like the promise of seeing club scenes we like didn't get in the episodes we watched.
Yeah. We got a girl. We got
a whole lot of library and
library girl. We all know I'd watch that show.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see the version of this show that works, I'll tell you where you watch it. It's called Scrubs, and it is nothing like this show, but it is also somehow everything like this show.
Yeah, it's true. That's like, I guess that's how you do a medical sitcom where it's like I think the thing that I didn't like was like the fact, well, I didn't like a lot about it, but it was like, okay, they were trying to do this thing where it was like, okay, peek behind the curtain of how the business aspect of it works. But I feel like that's too specific for a big audience and too behind, like inside baseball, you know?
The billings, the billing system.
I think average people like don't want to fucking know about that. Personally, I don't want to know that my doctor also moonlights as a novelist and is also this TV personality. Like, I don't want to know about that. Like, I just want you to be a good doctor, and I don't care about how your business is run. I care that I'm being seen by a medical professional. I don't want to know. It just feels shitty seeing that. It just feels, like I don't care how you're trying to make as much money as you want in the late 80s. Like, fuck you. Like, I don't.
But also 1989 New England. I feel like everyone
it was the
wanted,
Reagan era,
wanted to write
or was Reagan out by then?
Yeah, everyone wanted to write the great American novel on the side. Everyone had like a book manuscript that they were cooking up, no matter what their
but it's like
career
there's
was.
Lots of I don't know.
And
when you're already a successful person, why do you also have to try to be like that? You know what I mean?
Because you can have depths.
Yeah.
They're
bored, I guess.
Okay, my thing is, I think it's fine to show that a doctor has some other side interest outside of medicine,
of course. But having a second career is annoying.
Even if it's here's the thing: if the point is he's trying to write a book or he wrote a book or whatever, they picked the wrong aspect of that to like make that fun.
Yeah,
like. Starting the show,
it was interesting. Well, maybe
with the book coming out and him doing press for it, was maybe not the place to start. If you're trying to say, "Oh, it's always been his dream to write this sci-fi story," like give us season 1 to be trying to write the book, like,
but then the show is not about that.
Maybe
the whole thing is that a lot of doctors do publish, and maybe the joke is that. Yeah, so does he, but he's publishing sci-fi novels.
Right. But again, I feel like they could have explained that a little bit. I don't know. It's almost like assuming people know that. I don't know.
That doctors publish?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so, yeah. I mean,
I think a lot of people know that.
I'm throwing darts at a board here. I don't know what they're trying to go for with it. I think they're just maybe seeing like, all right, well, the doctor stuff's not working. Let's go with his novelist stuff.
It felt more plausible, the whole thing of him becoming the TV personality. Like, that seemed to make sense. But like they almost needed an in to get him into that world. And like the reason why he ends up doing that is because of the silly banter that happens between him and the TV host. And that's how that evolves into that. But it's like, why not have him on there for another reason? Why not have him, because I don't know. Like there was like that funny plot that we saw recently on the other two where there's like this doctor who is like this like Instagram doctor, and he's like this like hot doctor who becomes Instagram famous, and he's like an influencer and all this, and then it turns out he's just like a really bad doctor. Like so that's like kind of a funny way of like, it's like he's like a celebrity doctor, but he's like, like he's more into being the celebrity. But so I feel like that works, but I feel like this, I don't know.
Well, okay.
Now I'm just ranting again.
If we really want to figure out how they could have done this a little differently, It's like, yeah, what if out of the doctors in this
Is it worth doing?
It's not, but now I want to see this concept to its conclusion.
The Mindy Project. They do it on the Mindy
Mindy
Project.
Project,
The
yeah.
Mindy Project
So,
was about
okay.
running a private practice.
Yeah, see, they did it.
Yeah.
They did it in a way
Yeah.
that was felt not. Yeah, it didn't feel contrived on there. So Mindy Project
until it was terrible.
Yeah.
So Mindy Project, Scrubs.
But like, what if he was this?
Were those shows inspired by this show, possibly?
No, they were all inspired by MASH.
Yeah, I guess they were all inspired by MASH. Yeah.
What if he was this doctor who's always, on, like he's always just like really hyped up and has this big personality, and his other partners are all just trying to do the normal sort of practicing medicine thing, but their practice is kind of struggling for some reason.
Yeah.
And then he accidentally falls into this gig as a TV personality. He's not an amazing doctor, but he ends up being very compelling for the TV audience, which in turn brings tons of patients to the practice. So now you have a dynamic where the other doctors there are grateful for the fact that his ridiculous personality is keeping people coming in through the doors. So he can do his thing, they can do their thing, and there is a little bit of like friction between them, but at least like there's a reason for all of these elements to be there. Whereas this kind of felt like, let's just dump everything in the kitchen sink in.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I would say this doesn't work, and why even that idea wouldn't work, and this is something that a lot of sitcoms get really, really wrong, right? Your whole premise can't be tied to this guy.
Yeah.
You can't not have the rest of your cast not be funny. What's the point? What's the point of having an ensemble if all they're doing is reacting, right? So you did notice in the second season, like the other doctors seem to have gotten a little bit more sitcom-y. And that's because
a little.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, look at Greg was very sitcom-y in the second episode that we watched. And, like, it fails, right? It fails if all people are doing is look at this guy. And that's why this show really doesn't work.
Okay, so I guess it's about that time where we connect this show, Dr. Doctor, to Friends. I am very excited to see how you go about doing that, because as compared to the other shows we've done so far this season, it certainly seems far less obvious.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of hyped it up too much. It's going to be a little anticlimactic. So there are 2 1-degree connections, and I really didn't feel like there could have been a lot more, but I just really, for this one, I did not feel like investigating that far. So I'll give you the 2 1-degree connections. So the first one is through Audrey Neenan, who plays Nurse Faye, who's like a recurring character who we didn't even like, the one that Mike Stratford makes fun of but is not actually a ditz. So she guest starred on Friends. And then the other connection is through Michael Lembeck, who directed many episodes of Friends. He also directed some episodes of Dr. Doctor.
There you go.
That's all I got.
All right, well, there we go. And what about the spinoff?
Right. So I guess the overall theme is that this show didn't slow anyone down in terms of having lots of work in television. Like, everybody in the cast did a lot of work in television as guest stars. So it's like a lot of, you go through their IMDb credits and you see a lot of like guest stars, like 1 episode here, 1 episode there. Like, that's very common for all of them. So none of them were really hurting for work. Like Matt Frewer, like he had already kind of made a splash as like Max Headroom. Like, that was his like big thing. And his career kept rolling after that. He has tons of parts in TV and films, has done a lot of voice work as well. He's got like a total of 137 IMDb credits. So, he's just kind of been a guy out there in the world. Beau Gravit, who played Grant.
Grant. I always fuck up their name.
Yeah, so he has done a lot of work in film and TV off and on. He like kind of falls into that category I mentioned where he do a lot of one-off things. He's also done a lot of stage work as well. He was in one of those Danielle Steele movies that we talked about in our that whole like funny oral history of the strategy to get Jennifer Aniston from muddling through to Friends by sabotaging the network via Danielle Steele movies. He was in one of those. And he's currently the artistic director of the Actors Studio in New York. So that's kind of a neat thing about him. So he's obviously a well-respected figure in like the theater world. Julius Carey, who played Abe, also has worked steadily after. Fun fact, he appeared in 2 episodes of Maybe This Time, another Twas show. Most notable roles include Lord Bowler on The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., and a character named Bill on Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. Sadly, he passed away in 2008, but did a lot of work in television before then. Maureen Mueller, she worked a lot in film and television off and on since. She played 5 different characters on Law and Order Special Victims Unit, which I find very funny. There's those like New York actors who guest star in all the they really get into those Law and Order franchise shows, and it's hilarious when the same actor will portray 5 different roles like throughout the season, because they'll just
very common. Yeah,
it's very common, but it's no less like jarring because it's like, hey, there's tons of actors in New York. Why do you have to use the same ones over and over in different roles?
Yeah, because it's like
you could use like, I'm sure there's some theater actor who could use that one guest star role. Like you didn't need to give it to the same woman.
It's
like,
a crime drama, but they'll reuse actors as if it's a sketch troupe.
Yeah, it's hilarious. But yeah, and then we've got Tony Carrero, who played the brother and was great in that episode. He's guest starred on all the classic 90s sitcoms, including Home Improvement, Empty Nest, Wings, Frasier, like all of them. And Sarah Abrell, and I couldn't figure out which blonde she was. I'm so sorry. She might have been the girlfriend. She didn't work much after this, so she took a big break. And Brian George, you know, who we've already mentioned, we know him best as Babu Bhatt, but, you know, he actually was only in 3 episodes of Seinfeld, which is wild. But it seemed like a bigger recurring role. One of his like biggest roles, actually, though, was Dr. Shakur on The Secret Life of the American Teenager. Like that was like a big role in that show. He has 308 IMDb credits.
Oh my god!
I know. He's like, you know,
is that a new
when
record?
when you were saying like, oh, I haven't seen him much, I was like, oh man, you have though. You
have. He's been there, and he's done a ton of voice roles. Like he's just done all the video games, all the like comic book, you know.
Awesome. Yeah,
tons. Like he's not hurt for work his entire career. He's always been out there. I guess there's not much else to say. Like the creator of the series, Norman Steinberg, he, you know, kept working. You know, he found more success executive producing other sitcoms, including Raising Dad, which was the Bob Saget show that was from a few years ago, where Kat Dennings and Brie Larson were his daughters. So anyway, yeah. I mean, everybody did fine after this. And that's what I got.
Great. I have one leftover. I don't know if either of you have any leftovers.
Go for it.
But one thing we didn't talk about is the opening song and titles.
Oh boy. All right. Let's.
That was one of the weirdest that we've encountered yet visually. This song, it's a famous song. It's fine. Like the song is fine. I have to wonder whether they chose the title for the show based on the song lyric, where they're like, yeah, we want to open with this song. The song says Doctor Doctor, so let's just call the show Doctor Doctor. There's that. But like, okay, so for anyone who hasn't seen it, I'll just describe really simply. The show opens with a montage of still images of basically like illustrations and artwork over presumably decades and or centuries of portrayals of doctors and the practice of medicine throughout history, some of which seem to be like very like outlandish, almost like centuries old illustrations of weird, medical practices and things like that.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Cheers opening.
Yes.
That was like a popular style. Although the thing with the Cheers opening is that the imagery all had a very specific vibe to it. It wasn't like a mishmash.
Yeah, that was one
of different styles.
Yeah.
But like it's a similar thing. They were going for a similar style, which I guess must have been all the rage in the 80s, where it's like, okay, this is about this profession or this particular element of our culture. Let's show a bunch of like kind of folksy, iconic imagery that depicts that in a animated sequence montage.
Well, that's a very good observation.
Yeah, so
I didn't
it
make
was
that
trying
connection.
to be like that, but it was very crudely, poorly done. And
I have a question.
What's that?
Why this song and not Bad Case of Lovin' You?
Exactly. That's what I thought it was. And that's the song that was in my head.
Yeah.
Like the doctor.
Yeah,
Give
exactly.
me some new. Is it give me some news? I got a bad case of loving you.
Yeah, because the doctor,
anyway.
the doctor is about to give you some news, and the ailment is that he's got a bad case of loving you.
The scene that whenever that song gets in my head, the scene I automatically go to, speaking of the audience, the Office, is that scene late in the series where Andy is auditioning for the stupid reality TV show, and Jessica St. Clair, who's a very funny actor who I've always been a fan of, she's like this woman he meets in line, and she introduces herself with that song because her name is KCD and she adds her name in the song. So I literally cannot separate that song from that like moment from The Office. Like it's this weird association I have now.
I don't know why, but I feel like that might actually even be in this series finale.
It might be. Yeah,
because I feel like that's when he's auditioning.
Yeah. Well, no, it's well after. It's well before that because he starts getting made fun of a lot. He becomes a meme by the final episode because he's the crying meme. Because he does the audition and fails miserably and says, I am so gonna sit here and cry. And that becomes a full-on meme. Yeah.
I have blacked out everything after Carell leaves.
Yeah. Well, Aaron's the same way. He doesn't like the
I'll
post-Carell episodes.
It's terrible.
I'll suffer through it for other aspects of the show.
But notice how we're trying to wrap up this episode and we're going back to The Office and we started...
It's a better show.
Exactly. No, that's what I'm getting at. And we started this episode talking about the Oscars completely off topic because we wanted something more interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
because it wasn't that interesting, but somehow we filled over an hour talking about it.
Well, yeah, because I don't know.
A lot of tangents,
it prompted a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the point of our podcast, I guess.
Yeah. All right, let's do a quick check-in with Mr. Producer.
I feel like we've just about tapped the depths of that particular well.
Don't you want to know about how his sitcom's shaping up, though?
Yeah, I guess. Hello, Genuine Class Productions, Raleigh Prince Jeffries speaking.
Hello, Raleigh. It's Aaron Yeger from Twas.
Ah, yes, Mr. Seeger. I'll transfer you through. Hey, kid!
Hey, Mr. P, what's shaking?
Busy. Time is money, money is pickles, as they say.
They certainly do.
What did you guys do on the show this time around?
Doctor.
Oh, yeah. Give me the news. Got the bad case of love. Great one.
Right, yes.
That show won 2 GLAAD Awards.
It did. Did any of your shows win anything similar?
One of my early 80s shows, Meet Cute It got a special award from the Cincinnati Meatpacker and Butchers Media Association.
Oh, sure, the CMPBMA.
Yeah, we were one of the only shows who was really taking careful precautions with how we told stories about the nation's butchers. Does that count?
It really doesn't. So, anyway, what's happening with your show? That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, any news? Last time we talked about the premise a bit. You know, the ventriloquist opening up the pet store, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, I guess it's been a little while. Things have changed a little bit. You know, a couple of cooks in the kitchen.
Nicholson passed?
Well, no, not exactly. They decided to go in a different direction.
So who's in line to play the voice of the dummy?
Some of the studio guys, they just flipped over the show. They flipped. But they had a couple of notes, you know, which story of my life, right? So the dummy, he didn't make it in.
Oh, well, so it's just about a pet shop?
It is not.
The magician.
Out.
So what parts did they like?
They loved the title.
That's it?
That's it. So now we're eyeing a bit of a family sitcom angle for it, you know? Just a real family. Down and out dad, maybe a wife, some kids, tell some relatable stories. You know, time will tell. What was that show you guys covered today again?
Doctor?
Yeah, see, there we go. That gives me a great idea.
Oh yeah, what?
A robot who is a live-in chef for the family. Yep.
All right, well, I mean, it'll be fun to see how that show continues to evolve.
Yeah.
So we'll talk to him again soon, I'm sure.
Can't wait. Sounds like a real winner.
Well, I mean, up against Doctor, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, even Mr. Producer, I feel like, wouldn't have touched that one.
No.
Or you would have at least thrown, you know, a chimpanzee in it. That show could have used a chimpanzee.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's another episode of whatever this is called.
That was a show?
Oh, right. Yeah, I always forget that. But, you know, you can check us out on social media. You can check us out on the Instagrams, as the kids say. It's That Was a Show. And now you can find our first 2 seasons on YouTube if you want to go back and look at some of those. So, you know, the account there is also That Was a Show. So that is, I don't know why I forgot. I don't know why I forgot the name.
Yeah, and visit our website, thatwasashow.com, and it links to all of these great things.
Yeah.
Like the grams and the tubes.
Yeah. All those things.
The grams and the tubes.
Oh, that's fun. Now I just want, like, graham crackers.
Oh, yeah.
That Was a Show is created and hosted by Brynn Byrne, Andrew Barry Helmer, and myself, Aaron Yeger. It's a production of Radio Gizmo in Toronto, Canada. Subscribe, rate, review, and share. Follow us on Instagram and tell your friends about it. That Was a Show?
Radio Gizmo.